Hello, my YouTube friends. I want to talk about toxicity. Toxicity today. I want to talk about toxicity today, my YouTube friends and itinerant travelers to my channel. And I I'm incognito at the moment, but I'm using the frontman of toxicity on the planet. Toxicity on Earth is represented by this little head with a goiter. It's a man with a goiter, and I want to talk about toxicity a little bit because this person this person I am the expert on what it means to be toxic, toxic, dirty, dirty, dirty. And maybe actually what I'll do is I'll let my friend here finish off this little talk so that it's going to be a little bit more comprehensible because I don't make a lot of sense when I talk. So I'm gonna let my friend here explain what I'm talking about. This is my representation of toxicity, my representation of the toxic human being on the planet. And I know I'm going to offend the Catholics. Fine, so be it. But somebody's got to do the sculpture that represents. It's the guy who kind of had the tongue hanging out at the end, and I always sort of pictured him with a goiter on the side of his neck. Toxic, like a. It's sort of like a virtual. It's like an image I had in my mind that these people have this sort of bag of toxicity hanging around them. Anyway, I've been out of the loop for a little while. I'm going to talk about toxicity today. Toxicity in the sense, as I always like to do, I'd like to create a context. And I have been having difficulties with my ears, and I decided to go on a fast. I've been on a fast. I haven't eaten for 8 days. I've been taking juice. Fabulous stuff, people, and I'll tell you what's in this. This is 70% carrot, 20% beet, 10% celery, and I do actually use bunches of parsley juiced. And I've been on this, I did 6 days, 5 days, and then I went 2 days on apple juice with psyllium. I'll explain this a bit, and bentonite clay in the apple juice. And I've been on a juice fast for 8 days, and I've been having a problem with my ears. It's clearing up. It's clearing up. The doctor, I won't be able to see a specialist for 4 months, so I decided, well, I got to take it into my own hands before. I don't even know why I made the appointment, because whenever I get sick, I go on a fast, and I stop eating. I give my organs a rest, but more importantly, what I do is I do tissue cleansing through bowel management or colonics. Now, if there are, I'm going to open this book in a minute. If there are children in the room, maybe you have to take them out of the room. My mouth is a little orange. This is a fabulous, fabulous book by a man called Bernard Jensen, who figured out that 100% cure rate, people, on the most brutal diseases, you name it, any kind of cancer, this guy cured through what he calls deep tissue cleansing through bowel management. That's basically doing colonics in a program. You have to do this right. You can't just sort of, you got to figure out how to do it. But the principle I'm just going to explain. And you know, of course, that our body has a fabulous mechanism to get rid of really nasty stuff inside of us called the colon. Okay, so you have a picture of a healthy colon on this side and a not so good looking colon. And this is what it actually looks like. That most people have like very unhealthy intestines, and it's like quite ugly and brutal and horrible. Now here I'm just going to show you a few pictures in this book. I'm going to put a link of the book underneath. This is what can come out of people who are on a normal diet, you know, what is considered to be nutritious and normal, this stuff accumulates in your intestines. Look at that. I mean, brutal. It's the devil's, it's the devil's necklace in your intestines. This is like mucousy kind of horrible, horrible stuff. This isn't feces. This is worse. So like I say, if you have children in the room, please remove them. These are people that had illnesses and sicknesses, and a lot of it manifests on, you know, skin and toes and feet, and of course you have cancer and all that. So I will put a link for this book, and I'm just going to talk about my own reaction to this. And I do fast for several reasons. Number one, health is obviously very important because our organs need to have a rest, and especially from the diet that we're now subject to. And I'll get into a bit more into the idea of toxicity. But first, what I want to say is that in order for a body to be functioning in such a way that it is living up to its potential, and I've always talked about the idea that what is so inspiring to me is that I think that every person has a calling, but you can't get to that calling unless you're really functioning on all cylinders. Or let me put it this way, you may be accomplishing some aspects of this inner thing that we have in us that wants to come out naturally, but if we're not functioning, clicking on all cylinders, our organs aren't really working. It's going to be a version of. It's not going to be great. But you know what's amazing to me, even in spite of how toxic people are. Like if you look at artists in history too, these people were quite unbalanced in many ways, toxic, in a state of toxicity, alcoholism. You have, you know, Dylan Thomas, alcoholics who were desperately clinging to life, but still, because of their toxic states, but still producing the work that they did in spite of that, which is quite fabulous and amazing to me. So imagine if they had been in a healthy state, what they would have produced. And you know, the body, the mind, we're all sort of like, it's a whole thing. It's not just like, oh yeah, it's like a brain on legs who can do whatever they want to do. It doesn't work that way. So the idea of fasting, for me, is obviously to give the organs a rest and a cleaning out, to chelate, to extract the poisons that accumulate through daily living, just through breathing now. And now, of course, with Fukushima and the toxicities being released on a monumental scale, which is on a whole other level than what it was before. This age of fission, as I call it, was instigated in 1938 with the discovery of, or with the invention, I prefer the invention of splitting the atom, something that should never happen. It doesn't exist in the rest of the universe as far as smart science has determined, except for possibly on the perimeter of supernovae. But that is something that is conjecture. So nuclear fission does not exist in the rest of the universe, except we're so smart. You know, people have accepted the fact that, oh, scientists came up with it. Oh, these people are really on the level. They can give us stuff that really helps. Yeah, it would be a good idea if they did. So the notion of fasting is going to be so important to myself now, considering that Fukushima has now leveled the playing field of health and illness. It's going to be based on Fukushima. Of course, there are many toxins that are being produced, chemicals that should have no place around us. But there is an off switch on all of them, but there isn't on Fukushima and the nuclear bastards. That stuff just keeps on giving. It can't be shut off. So it becomes even more important. The most important thing is to shut them all down. This is rule number one. Shut them all down for us to have even a slight chance. But what do I do? How do I help myself primarily to begin with? And that is this what I'm telling you now. And you notice I have a lot of energy. I haven't eaten any solids. I've been having juice for 8 days now. And you have to do it the right way. But this is like part of the thing that is instilled in our brains that starts to it never made sense. Oh, you have to eat every day, at least 3 times or twice. Or if you miss a meal, you go all funny and, you start to feel funny. Well, that's because you're toxic. You're toxic up there and you're toxic inside. And once this is removed, this obstacle of toxicity, we begin to think more clearly. We begin to function and act with determination and strength and especially in terms of living our calling, what it is that we're capable, and I hesitate to say meant, because it's like a design thing. So, but there is something that we have that we can offer to others in being, which I love, the idea of being able to offer something to someone that makes their life a little better in some way, even just for a moment. When you listen to a piece of music that you absolutely are totally enthralled with it, it makes you feel fabulous. That is such a gift. I am so grateful to people that make music or art in any form that makes me feel good about myself. So I don't want to take this too long. The idea of fasting is going to be so essential in our well-being going forward now. It always has been, but it's even more so now, because the mechanisms we have in our body that can prevent the things that are happening. A friend just came today and told me that every person he had contact with this week over Canada Day, this weekend, has a cancer or an illness that is pretty severe. This was quite extraordinary. And some of them are like 40 years old. They're not old people. Between 40 and 65, he said. There were like people he met this weekend that he's known all have some affliction cancer. And in order for us now to be more able to withstand this until we get these bastards out of our lives permanently and shut down and try, and I say try because to shut down a nuclear plant is virtually impossible, because the shit always remains. It's like thousands and tens of thousands of years. What do you do with that stuff? Never mind the plant just being shut down. So what becomes essential is to have a position where I feel powerful in my own self. I don't have to go to the guy in the white coat. The guy in the white coat thinks, but besides, they have like the shortest lifespan of any profession. The guys in the white coats, help yourself, doctor. They think a certain way, which is toxic. These people have the medical system is so fundamentally flawed in all its positions of what it is to be in a state of dis-ease, of illness. The medical profession has fundamental dogmatic positions, always have had. Number one, they know everything. There's just a few dots to be put on an I and a T to be crossed. They have a basic infectious theory, which has been totally disproved as far as AIDS is concerned. As far as TB is concerned, there are no proven ways of transmission. They can't prove transmission, but everything becomes infection. So you are now subject to some really nasty elements in the environment, like bacteria or virus that attack you. Attack. Where do we know attack? Oh, we're really good at identifying attack and being in a state of war. You know, the ISIS war, the war on terror, the war on bacteria, the war on virus, H1N1. Oh, we're always in a state of war. This is the nature of the medical system. They want to create this fictitious idea that we're always in a state of war, and this is totally flawed. There is no proven transmission on any of the diseases that they're actually saying they do. And then, of course, they come in with vaccinations, which are a brutality on a life form, especially a child who is newly born. Within the first 10 days, they get their first shot of vaccinations. By the time they're 15 or 16, they've had 70 or 80 shots. Imagine this. And these are toxic, lethal injections, and parents need to inform themselves. If you love your children, you inform yourself about this, because it's no use me ranting here telling you something. Besides, listen to the people that to you appear to be what they're saying. So if I'm saying, oh, people, you should go and fast and it'll make you healthy, but then I don't do it, well, there you go. It's not right. So what I'm saying is the notion of health and taking care of ourselves is going to be the most crucial thing in terms of turning this ship around. This good ship, this good ship of humanity needs to be turned around into a non-toxic state. And I've always felt that the inner toxicity will be reflected outside. So if you elect a president, this toxic individual called Donald Trump, he reflects a society that is toxic. He is not somebody that's running the show. He is put into place by complicit people. People that say toxicity is good. We want a toxic guy on the top job to represent my culture. So, I mean, how else can you describe the people that run the joint other than totally toxic? We also have another name. We call them psychopaths. When they get so nuts, they'll start pushing buttons and dropping bombs or sending drones over people that are in a wedding party, and they kill people in wedding parties because they're psychopaths. But the reason they're psychopaths is because they're toxic. And we have mechanisms, you and I, ordinary people, this is what I'm saying. We have mechanisms, we have literature that clearly identifies a plan you could be on to detoxify yourself, which will result collectively, I'm talking, we need masses of people detoxing because people are totally toxic. We need massive numbers of people becoming detoxified and healthy. Under the circumstances we're in, it's a monumental effort. But I'm saying this is the best tool that I've come across to take charge of my own health. And of course, you can say eat healthy. Absolutely, all those things apply. But I'm not even big on saying, oh, you got to eat this, this, or that. The only thing that I say, what I've understood is food combining, that you combine some foods and not other foods. For example, you don't mix protein and carbohydrates at the same time because it starts, it can't digest properly in our guts, and it creates discomforts. And even though you don't feel it, it's like if you give a child for the first time a shot of vodka, they're going to die virtually from that shot of vodka because it's so toxic and poisonous. The alcohol is poisonous. Meanwhile, you have a guy like Yeltsin who could drink 2 bottles of vodka in a half a day and still seem to function all right. So you see what I'm saying? It's not a matter of, yeah, I've been doing it and I can do it. It just means you're toxic. If you can consume alcohol on the level that is just crazy insane. I mean, I have a beer, I have a scotch with a cigar. I mean, I'm a little bit wingnut on this as well. But okay, so you have your habits, but keep it contained within a level that you can sanely handle. And what I'm saying is I'm handling it through, I try twice, 3 times a year. I'm going to do it every month for 3 days now. I'm going to do a fast every month for 3 days because it's escalating now. The levels of toxicity is escalating. So what I'm trying to communicate about this idea of fasting and toxicity, that the external world, for me, is represented by how we're winning the internal battles we fight. So if our external world is dysfunctional, it just means that the inner world is dysfunctional. So unless we're able to resolve that inner battle that each one of us fights, I know each one of us on some level, I call it conscience. Conscience kicks in. But even beyond conscience, it's that sense of being responsible for ourselves as living incredibly mysterious, complex entities of millions and billions of functions going on simultaneously, and we have no clue how it all works, but we have a sense of how to support it. We can either kiss off on it and just get, batshit crazy and drink ourselves into oblivion, get shit-faced. This is not the way to to go if we want an external world that is actually going to be workable for a longer period of time for other beings like you and me to enter this dimension, this world, this living, and have a shot at it. We have a responsibility to give anybody else after us to have a kick at the can the way we have. We have been fortunate up until this point, until the nuclear devastation. We've been fortunate, but it's up to us to set a playing field here that allows someone else to have a chance. And the idea of perpetual war is basically perpetual toxicity. And the war that's being lost inside is reflected outside. So if we create dysfunction, if our inner world is dysfunctional, our outer world is dysfunctional. So have a good look at this idea of fasting. And one more thing about this is that the sense of well-being that comes out of disciplining yourself to do something that appears and feels contrary to your nature. The idea you grow up, you eat twice, 3 times a day if you're in Western society. If you're not as fortunate, you're lucky to get a meal sometimes after 3 days, and people are emaciated. And this is horrendous, the hunger on the planet. But I'm saying about people that have grown up in an affluent society where you go and, you know, food and things line up on shelves in stores and you just pick it off shelves and you have it, you consume it. There is a kind of feeling that it's supposed to be this way. Not necessarily. We have other ways of existing, and one is to discipline ourselves to not do the same thing over and over. Who else said that? And expect different results. You stop doing something just for the sake of being aware, to have the satisfaction of knowing that you can discipline yourself to resist something. So if I like my scotch and have a cigar, I say, no, I won't do it for a month or 2 months or 5 or a year, or I'll stop doing it. I used to be a smoker. I smoked regularly, not a lot, but I used to smoke. And I stopped 30 years ago. I just said no more. Well, of course, I picked up the cigars, which is smoking, of course, but I'm talking cigarettes. So there is a great deal of satisfaction. I highly recommend check out Bernard Jensen's bowel management techniques and fasting. And it's a program, you have to do it right. You can't just say, oh, I'll stop eating. It doesn't work that way. There is a way of doing this that strengthens and supports the system that is us, the complex system, this mystery, this amazing mystery that is you and I, which we have, and no one really has a clue how it works, but we can support it. We can support. And I am not one on immune system. I don't believe in immune systems and infections and all of that. I think that we are actually so perfectly contained. We can resist all the, except for the nuclear thing. This is very troubling in my mind, but I believe that we can resist all what is considered to be pathogens if we're completely well managed within ourselves, like entirely balanced in our body. And fasting and tissue cleansing, colon cleansing makes a huge contribution towards this well-being in us. And the feeling of satisfaction you'll have from having disciplined yourself is just an added bonus. So I'm not gone. I'm on a fast, and I'm feeling my ear feels like it's clearing up, and quite a number of other things are clearing up. I've had this sort of skin. My skin eliminates toxic. You can't really see it here, but they're like little red spots that I have, and this is cutting down a lot. In the summer, they come out. So my skin is eliminating toxins, and you have what are called healing crises. I had several in the first 3 days. My joints started to really ache a lot. It was difficult to move. And within a day, that started to clear up. So things start to clear out, but you have to do your colonics. Otherwise, stuff is stuck in there, and it just reintroduces itself. The toxins, as the cells remove the toxins, that gets reintroduced through the bowel, and you've got to keep the bowels moving. So check out the book before you proceed on not eating. But besides, you lose weight too, and you feel a lot lighter. And I have 50 stairs every day I have to go up on, and it feels a lot lighter carrying. I've lost maybe 10 pounds or so already. It's a lot easier. It's a lot better to live that way. My message today.